Hey, everybody. We made it another week. Sometimes these weeks are so long and sometimes they're so short, you can't quite believe it. This was a short one. So is that good or bad? I have no idea. I do know that I wasn't going to have a glass of wine today, despite my guest saying she was going to have a glass of wine. And yet here I am with a glass of wine. So, we'll take what we can get. Today, I'm really excited about my guest, Stacey Agdern. She's here to talk about her book, Miracles and Menorahs. But I want to tell you really quickly, next week, my guest is Diana Peterfreund, and she's going to come and talk to us on Tuesday. And Diana, if you don't know, is a YA author, and she has 2 books out right now set in the Clue universe. So Clue the game, and then Clue the movie. And if you were, say, in high school with me, Rochelle Township High School in the early 90s, or May School, or at any point with me in my childhood, we played that game, we watched that movie relentlessly. So if you are a Clue fan, come join us on Tuesday to get our nerd Clue on. But first, we have Stacey Agdern with Miracles and Menorahs. And someone emailed me, and I do appreciate your emails, guys. Thank you so much. And said, could you please read the back cover copy so we know what the book is that you're talking about? And that's a really good idea that I'm embarrassed I didn't think of, several weeks ago. So I'm going to quickly read Stacey's back cover copy, and then I'm going to bring her on and we'll get to talking. Nope, not the right. Here we go. There we go. So Miracles and Menorahs. Stacey, by Stacey Agdern. Sarah Goldman loves Hanukkah, and she's thrilled to be appointed as vice chair of the Hollowville Hanukkah Festival. So when the festival is threatened with cancellation, she comes up with an idea, a new slogan, an advertising campaign topped off with a metal menorah large enough to fill the center of town. But even though her heart and dreams are large, the committee's budget constraints threaten to stop her grand plans right in their tracks. Famous metal sculptor Isaac Lieberman also loves Hanukkah, but his vision of a perfect Hanukkah isn't a commercial community event. It's spending time with family, following age-old traditions. He's not interested in the festival, no matter how many times his grandmother, his booby, asks him to contribute one of his sculptures. Then Sarah comes tumbling into his life. Can she change his mind about more than just the holidays? So let's bring in Stacey. Hey, Stacey.
Hey, Molly, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you could make it. And I have to say, reading your back cover copy, your book, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, I had a lot of really thinky thoughts about community and compromise and all that stuff, and we'll talk about it. Mm-hmm. But reading the back cover copy, you pack a lot of world into this book. And it's relatively short. Like, it's not, I was reading, I was like, oh, this is like a 80,000 word book, but no. So tell me about packing as much world as you could into this novel.
So the center of the book is the Hanukkah Festival. And so in order for the Hanukkah Festival to function, I had to create a world where it was possible. I had to think about how it started, why, what kind of community would have such a thing, what would inspire a community to start it, what the community would be like, what the people involved in planning the festival would be like, what the planning process was. And so in order to make all of that work, I had to build the world around it.
You are currently, right now, able to plan a Hanukkah festival. If you could do it.
Exactly, I could. Yeah, and that's the other thing about this. I talk about it in the author's note, but and I talk about it in a lot of places. Like, I have never been to a Hanukkah festival because one doesn't exist, at least not the way that Hollowville's does. So I thought about different events that I had seen and what they were like and the planning processes for those events. And that is how I came up with the festival.
So did you feel like you had to tear yourself away a little bit from that kind of nitty gritty to get into, say, the romance or the relationships, with Isaac and his booby? Did you have to tone down some budget conversations to open up some?
Some of it I mean, yeah, because like once you get knee deep in those details, like of course it's going to come out, 5 million pages about like the committee meeting and who was doing this and who was doing that and who complained about like the changes in the food court. Like all of these little details, you're going to, once you start thinking about them, as you well know, like when you're building a world like that, they're going to come up. But yeah, like, so, I absolutely had to tone down a lot of those elements in order to make the sort of other, because I wasn't writing a story about a festival.
Yeah.
I was writing a romance set around a festival.
But you very convincingly gave us a character in the process. And as you know, I'm a person who does a lot of community stuff. Like you gave us the flavor of all of that, and I could imagine the budget.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like when I was in college, one of the fun memories that I have of my first year of university, I came home the very first time, from university to my hometown. At the time, my dad was temple president.
Oh, wow.
He was not going to services that night. I remember coming home, getting off the plane, driving back to Tarrytown from, I think it was LaGuardia Airport to Westchester County, dropping my stuff off at my house and then being driven by my mother to services so I could go to the Oneg after Friday night services to see everybody. So like needless to say, so like everybody could see me, I should say.
Yeah.
Because it was,
Yeah,
oh God,
I know.
Yeah. So I have been in and around the kind of politics that would be going into a Hanukkah festival like this.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, I've seen the budget meetings. I've heard the stories of, oh my God, this took forever. And this person, so like, yeah. So it's that sort of like real life research that you don't where you don't realize you're researching, yeah. But in fact you are.
Right. One of the other things that I really liked about it, and it's a thread about compromise. And it's something that, like, writing teachers or workshops that I've gone to, and I think that even I've probably said this in a workshop, is like, if you set your characters up in such a situation where neither one has a good reason to compromise, like if both of their reasons for not compromising are very good, you're going to write yourself into a corner. And her reasons for she doesn't want to compromise on this festival. She's working very hard, and this festival deserves to be seen. And he doesn't want to compromise on how he feels the holiday should be celebrated, and his art is very important. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh man, this is going to be pages and pages of headbutting. But it's like we do this little tap dance where they're like, okay, we don't agree, and they don't agree right away.
Nope.
And then they kind of never talk about it again. Like it goes a long way where they do all these other things. There's all this food that they get to eat. There's all this stuff going on. And I thought that was a really clever way. Did you find yourself like written into a corner with the compromise?
Not really, because here's the thing. Like, so the book takes place over an extended period of time. And I wanted to, like, from the beginning, set them up as people who found something in each other that they wanted to keep. That this sort of potential professional commitment was kept separate from these conversations, and neither of them wanted to talk about it, and risk losing their slowly developing personal relationship. And as they slowly got to a point where this was a possible conversation to have, they were ready to have it, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like it was like they decided very early on what was important between them.
They respected each other's opinions enough and valued it enough to just be like, all right, and instead of like, had I been trying to write this book, every conversation would have been like, you going to make that menorah for me? Like I would have forced this conflict. And you just You just like
Yep.
walk right up to it, and then we'll go to the food trucks instead.
Because but like all of these things, like you notice, like all of these things that they do find their way into the festival. That it's that sort of the festival and everything around it is that subtext of their relationship. Even if they don't acknowledge it verbally, it is always there. Like in that scene when they're in Brooklyn and they're having that first conversation, he's like, I can take her away from that. And what is that? It's Hullahville. It's the festival, that sort of undertone of the festival everywhere. Yeah. So even though they don't talk about it, because both of them knows at what the result of the conversation will be, like it's there.
Go ahead.
So no.
I want to say Melanie has said, "Hey Stace, here, watch what I can do. I've learned how to do this." Hey Stacey, your Star of David earrings are lovely, and you were rocking the new hair color.
Thank you.
Yeah, your old hair color. Is this all?
So earrings are made by Hilary Monahan, Hill's Peculiarities. I love her earrings a lot. This was actually my original natural hair color. I was a blonde for starting, I want to say when I was 19. I was I had been blonde until maybe September, August, when I realized that all of the things were going to start for the book, and I had very obvious roots.
I don't know what you mean.
Very obvious roots, to here. It was very I was blonde, and then this dark color that was like right here. And I was like, this is not going to work for anything. And so I had to decide, what was I going to do when it was safe to go visit my hairdresser? Was I going to go back to a brunette, or was I going to stay a blonde?
And look at you now.
And here I am. Yep.
I went and got my hair cut. It was getting really bad. And the guy was like, okay, well, let's talk about color. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to see this through. And he's like, what are you going to see? I'm just going to grow it out and see what happens. And he's like, oh, okay. And then I'm not kidding. Awesome. 2 nights ago, my mother-in-law comes over.
Oh, no.
My mother-in-law comes over and she's like, someone is coming to my house to do my hair because I don't feel comfortable going to a salon. Would you like
Oh God. Oh God. Oh God.
I was like, no, mother-in-law. I like this.
No, it's awesome.
Anyway, so that was it. Also, we should really quickly point out another thing the pandemic has brought us. It has brought you blue mascara. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very fancy, and it's brought me some gold eyeshadow. So we're just living our best lives.
I love that eyeshadow on you.
We're living our best lives.
Yes, we totally are.
Back to your book. Sorry, quick segue there.
All good. All good. Best things.
One of the things that I was also that I was really struck by, and it kind of kept coming up, and it just made me think about romance in general, and it made me think about the romance genre in some ways, and how your heroine and the people who with such love are trying to get this festival off the ground just want to be seen. They just want, they want to be seen. They want to stand upright and tall and in the glow of their own thing without having it to be about every other thing as well. And it keeps coming up. And I thought, well, that's a powerful part of romance in general. When you're reading a good romance, the heroine and the hero, they just want to be seen, and the other person is the person who sees them. And I think you nailed that. But it's also a little bit about romance to me, about the genre. It's like, hey, stop putting your stuff on us, and let us do what we're doing. And I really like that. Was that a plan? Did you? Oh, no.
If you notice, there's a conversation with the heroine and one of her mentors, Carol, who I love as a character for a lot of reasons. But when attempting to get information from my heroine, my heroine says, fine, I will give you this information. And then Carol's like, okay, fine. We can have this conversation, and I'll give you more space in the romance section. That is a very deliberate thing. From a former bookseller. For 10 years, I was the romance buyer for an indie store in New York City. And, you know, like amazing stores like Love Sweet Arrow and the Rip Bodice and so many other independent stores that carry romance novels. Loyalty Books, eCity, so many different other stores, Politics and Prose. They deserve to be shouted out and sort of have this conversation. But like, the thing is, that doesn't happen organically. Like, someone actually has to make a big deal about getting romance into a bookstore for it to happen. Right. So that is kind of the sort of subtext of that particular conversation. Did I sort of slide away from where you were going?
No,
but that was
your job as a buyer for a bookstore. I mean, you say those words in that order, and like, I am in. My dog, if the door is shut where I am, she loses her mind. I just have to open the door for my dog.
It's all good. We're having such a great conversation. We want, she wants to participate.
Yeah, she doesn't. And the door's not actually totally shut. It's just a little bit shut, and she can't figure out how to open it. She's smart but stupid. So the buyer for an independent bookstore, was that as dreamy a job as it feels like it could have been or should have been or wanted to be?
So I was the romance buyer, to be very specific about this. Yes, it was. I learned some hard lessons, but it was great. I loved learning about the industry that way. And it was just an amazing period of time where I was like up to my neck then in the genre, and it was a very, very happy and positive thing. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So another giant kind of theme, not really a theme, but like a part of the book is food.
Yes.
Like, and I think it's a big part of the festival. It becomes a big part of the festival. It's a big part of their relationship. My husband had a booby. It's a big part of that culture.
Yeah.
You are a grandson to a Jewish woman. You are fed.
Yeah.
So how is that going through, feeding that into the book and into the celebrations of Hanukkah? And then what is it in your life? Like, what are your Hanukkah food celebrations for your family and traditions like that?
So, if you know, like it's funny, like I had a conversation talking with someone about the book, and like, sort of how much explanation did I do about the holiday? And the only explanation that I did about the holiday was talking about the food traditions, because that's a subject of the holiday that really isn't discussed very often. Like, and the fact that like the only sort of mandated requirement for any Hanukkah related food is fried, that it has to be fried.
I didn't know that.
Yep, that is the only requirement. And so like you have these amazing foods from all over the world, like, that are specifically Hanukkah foods, and a whole bunch of other things that can possibly be treated as Hanukkah foods because they are fried. So
it's part of the oil that's
exactly. Then that's what
a treat to be able to eat fried.
Exactly. And it's like, and that's one of the joys. Like, every holiday has its own special sort of food related element, and the Hanukkah one is the fact that you fried them. Like, people talk about latkes and sufganiyot and don't necessarily think about why and wherefore. And the why is because you fry them.
Yeah. Say the jelly donut. Say
sufganiyot.
Sufganiyot. So there's sufganiyot.
Yep.
So there's a latte.
So this is the story behind that. For years, so I like to drink coffee. Clearly, I drink a lot of coffee. And in the before, there was a particular place I like to go very often that did very particular, special drinks for various holidays and things. And that place has so many drinks associated with so many holidays, with one exception.
Oh, man.
And so I figured if I was going to write a Hanukkah book about a Hanukkah festival that didn't exist, I might as well create a coffee drink. So I literally was like, okay, what would the drink that I would order at a particular coffee place be like for Hanukkah? What would it taste like? What would it be like? So that's the sufganiyot latte, the Sufi latte.
So it would be like a raspberry syrup. It's got to be some
Mm-hmm.
powdered sugar
Yep,
somewhere. Yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty good. So if as part of your family, as part of your tradition, like what are the foods that you're like you can't wait for?
So obviously I cannot wait for my latkes and applesauce because of course. I personally am a very pro applesauce individual.
Right? A very
Um,
heated battle between applesauce
yes.
versus sour cream, and you can't actually. It's not a delicious like you can't. I mean, I'm sure there are people who
I
do
know some
both.
people who do, and you know, I love them for trying, and like you know, I you know, and I'm not going to judge you know anybody who doesn't use applesauce. Personally, I think it's a much more versatile topping. I also like the salty and sweet mix.
Mhm.
So like if you have something like a latke and you dip it into the sweet applesauce, it's a nice sort of a balance. Um, what else do I love? I love like let's see. Sufganiyot, you know, I love the idea. I love the donuts and I love the sort of the mix of the tastes of them. There are tons that I haven't tried, but I'm dying to like investigate further because there's always something good and like the sort of feeling of family too. Exactly. Um,
Yeah, I
because
think
I am
the traditions around families and food over
mhm,
any holiday are I
so
mean
important.
it's
Yep.
it's an intense thing.
Hmm.
Even if you like, you know, I have friends whose parents didn't cook, but you know, the thing that they would have, the thing that they would order, the you know,
Yep.
my friend who grew up on this thing called garbage dip.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Just like these
Yep.
it's always really fraught. Another thing I want to bring up
Hmm.
that isn't necessarily about the book, but the book is featured in it. Let's talk really quickly about Romancing the Runoff.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So, for those of you who might not know, Romancing the Runoff is an auction. You can look it up. I highly recommend you look it up. I will add the link to the auction site. It's 32 auctions. It's super easy to
Yeah.
find, and it is basically every romance novelist you love is donating stuff. All of the
Hmm.
money goes towards um, uh,
Verified Action, Black
Stacey
Voters
Agdern,
Matter, and I forget there's one other thing that I cannot remember for the life of me. But
Georgia.
like sort of yeah.
So basically, is going towards the fight in Georgia, the Senate
Yeah,
vote.
the Senate runoff.
So what have you contributed? And you just like unlocked a special thing. You got to a
Yes.
money maker. Tell us what you
So
donated.
so I donated 3 different things. Um I did a custom playlist for the winner of a Thule book club event. And I was like, I really like that. And because one of the things I love to do is I love to put together playlists. I do it for my newsletter every month. That's actually the thing that makes me do a newsletter is the prospect of a playlist. So I offered one of those, and I offered a couple of different things in the second package. I offered in Miracles and Menorahs, my characters talk about a parody video that they keep watching.
Yeah.
I donated an annotated copy of the lyrics to the song in that parody video.
So, but as you're reading the book, you don't know what this parody video, like you
Exactly.
don't. So this is like a real like
Exactly. It's a little bit
in
of
your head,
afikoman,
not
as
on
they
tape.
say. Yeah. There's a little bit of I know in an early one there was one of the lines of the song in the book. I don't remember, but it is a parody video. It is a parody song. Um, I will say that, so for those of you who don't know, a parody song basically is altering the lyrics of an already existing song to reflect something else. One of the most famous people to do this is Weird Al Yankovic. There's a strong tradition, generally speaking, when you talk about Hanukkah music, where that's kind of part of it. Groups like 613 and the Maccabees have done this often, and like so many others as well. We did a really fun, anyway.
You did a really fun
So
what?
I know there were like when I initially revealed the lyrics to a place, we'd had a whole extended conversation about parody songs. Um, So what I will say is that it's kind of funny because I actually had to change the title of the parody song because the one that would reflect the original and more exactly was already taken by Adam Sandler. So my parody song has a different title, but it is still a parody song. And in conjunction with that, I have a fun Hanukkah pillow designed by Melissa Geschwind and a guy, Frank, who goes under the Twitter alias of Backhanded Devil. The pillow is a menorah with candles that have the famous Four Seasons tweet. The press conference will not take place at the Four Seasons Hotel. The concept is amazing. It's fantastic, this pillow.
Never not funny.
And then I also offered a Skype conversation about holiday movies. And I just announced that Alice Murray, whose writing is fantastic. She's written The Christmas Company, Magnolia Sisters, Love Spells for the End of the World, which is this really cute, adorable Halloween story. She just released Villain Lover. And she also wrote the screenplay for the Lifetime movie Christmas in Louisiana, I want to say it's called. And so she is going to join me on this Skype call.
Oh, fun. And so those are all things that you can still bid on. And when does the bidding end? The 20?
I want to say the 26th.
Yeah.
I think.
So, and it is.
There's so much there. Like,
and it is.
They're adding new items like every so often. So they're definitely like, and at various price points, because I know a lot of the items are like are like out of normal people's price ranges.
It's a blood sport.
Yes. It's like what is it? They reached the first oh god, they reached their first goal in like an hour or something. Yeah, like it is insane and it is amazing, and like
they're currently at like $100,000, a little bit over $100,000.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I was like, well, I have a budget that I'm willing to spend, and I can sprinkle it, or I could just go hard at one thing. And I found the thing that I wanted to go hard at, and I was like, here we go.
Oh God.
10 minutes. It was out of my budget.
Oh God.
And some other bidder was like, it was like I would barely hit send, and this so it is a good time. It is a good time. There's a stay at a cottage, like you can
there's so
it's beautiful. There's so much. So I will post the link. Please go check it out. Stacey, what's next for you? What have you got coming up, or what are you working on?
So right now I am in revisions for Anna's book.
Nice.
Which is coming out in June of 2021. It's called The History of Us. She is dealing with her unfinished business in Rockcliffe Manor. Yes.
Nice.
It's a summer book, and it's a lot of fun. It's about sort of writing yourself back into the narrative in terms of history. So it's exciting and fun.
Oh, I can't wait. I
love it.
The History of Us.
Yes, The History of Us is the title.
And it's coming out in the summer.
In June of 20. Yep. And then after that is December 2021, and Love and Latkes will be about Batya.
Oh, great! Love and Latkes. Oh man. I mean, these titles write themselves.
It's so much fun to play with the words like that. They're happy, they're joyful, and they're wonderful. And who doesn't like a book about a lacquer making competition, right?
Nobody doesn't like that. Not a single person.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I am. I love this book. I really add this book. If you are a holiday romance fan, this book satisfies on every level with the added addition of extra fried food.
Yes. And also, I want to say one other thing. So you and I were in an amazing anthology together. One of the Rogue stories, one of the Rogue anthologies. You wrote this beautiful story about a second chance romance. I wrote, Yes.
My story was about a guy who is a campaign. He's like the chief of staff for a woman who's running to be governor, and in like on a news panel, like a Fox News, CNN news panel, he punches out the right wing pundit who's like dog whistling her in this huge sexist manner, and he punches them. Like,
I love.
Yeah. So this was in Rogue Hearts.
Yes.
I believe, yes. And then your story was about a movie.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So my story in that anthology was about a movie star and a teacher who he is basically, she doesn't know that he's basically funding her classroom. And they are brought together by her sister, who is a filmmaker making a film about people who are acting to change politics for the better.
Mm-hmm.
There are also other things that I wrote about in that story, and because of the other things that I wrote about in that story, I wasn't able to give him the fun. I wasn't able to sort of give that character some happiness and joy. And one of the things I love about Miracles was that I was able to talk about the hero's tuchus in that book.
So are you gonna go back to that story?
Well, I mean, it's, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do with those, with my stories. I'm not quite sure, but I did put a little sort of nod to it in Miracles. I will say that.
And it's funny because those books were so short. They were like 15,000 words. So, I mean, there wasn't a single, I mean, they satisfying as like little bites for sure. But in every one of those books, I finished the story and I was like, man, I could use 30,000 more words of those two.
Seriously.
There's always room.
Yes.
There's always room. Well, Stacey, thank you so much for taking the time to come out and talk to us about your beautiful book. I really do appreciate it. Everybody listening to this on the podcast, remember to tune in next week. Diana Peterfroy's going to be here. And if you're watching on Facebook, Diana Peterfroy's going to be here. So everybody, wear a mask, wash your hands, stay home if you can. Please stay home if you can. And there's plenty of books to read. Read a book and have a drink. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you for having me.